Hello. What are we going to do about this upcoming climax that we're already beginning to experience, which we are being told is part of the beginnings of even a sixth mass extinction of species life on the planet? Hello, I'm Art Johnson.
I'm Sandra Early.
And this is Conversations for a 21st Century World. We intend to engage the planet, that's you, in conversations that we hope to actually snowball locally, regionally, across the planet to get everybody involved in focusing on coming together as human beings to do something very, very positive in service of humanity and all species life on the planet. So we've been really talking about, strategies for doing that. And sometimes when you show up, things just happen for you. And one of the things that we really walked into is a new book. Let me go ahead and I'll get into a screen share here. We've been covering this book by, and I'll get into showing us again here. A book called The New Green Deal by Jeremy Rifkin. And it's why the fossil fuel civilization will collapse by 2028. Scientists are telling us that the warming is coming from too much heat, from too much carbon, from the greenhouse effect, CO2, and now even methane. But mainly human beings are rising the temperature in a very, very dangerous way where things are really happening that are not only threatening our economic life, but life on the planet itself. So he has a bold economic plan to save life on Earth. And part of that plan has to involve with companies he's worked with called energy service companies. These are high-tech companies that are involved with contracting. He calls it performance contracting and peer assemblies, which he says is different than regular contracting where you have a buyer and a seller. This is really getting into them taking on the risk of building the whole thing out, even funding it, and then having the return on investment come out of the energy savings that pay off their share of it. And then the client ends up having basically a free infrastructure that helps save the planet and, fosters economic life. I'll just go ahead and talk about his credibility. He actually earned his credibility by consulting with the European Union for the last 20 years. And now in 2019, this is a report from like 2018, 14% of the energy generation in the EU is wind energy generation, wind farms, and they have onshore and offshore wind farms. And almost half of the European Union's 28 member states have already hit or are close to hitting their 2020 renewable energy targets. And Sweden came on top with 54.5% of its energy coming from renewable resources, and Germany leads the way with its installed base of wind farms. So while the United States has been pulling out of the Paris climate and engaging at kind of a very adolescent level of dealing with this energy thing, this has really been happening. And this is one of the things that the Green Deal is talking about. And now China has blasted forward with China's Belt and Road Initiative. And part of why this happened is he wrote a book called The Third Industrial Revolution, which is where you have a change in the whole economy as a result of moving away from fossil fuel and investing in renewable energies, which creates new jobs and all kinds of things. And China read that book, the Third Industrial Revolution, unfolding in the EU, and said, come on over here. They called him over to China and said, hey, look, consult with us. And 2 years later, China came through with a massive Belt and Road Initiative. Now, China is really a major polluter still, and they still have a lot of coal things. They probably have the worst air quality in the world in Beijing at sometimes. But they have made probably a massive economic commitment to wield massive economic power and political influence. That means trade across the planet through this initiative called the Belt and Road Initiative, based on kind of the old Silk Road, which was a trade route for a long, long time. And so Rifkin did this. And now he's saying, okay, the latecomer, the third elephant in the room, is not only the EU and China, but also the US. And he talks about a whole Green New Deal rising up from the ashes. And I think he means the ashes of ignorance or denial. And he says there's a waking giant that has to do with pension funds. These are funds that workers pay, you know, when you put it into your pension. But the problem has been in the past is Wall Street has been investing that in energy companies, in power companies, fossil fuel companies that have been putting workers out of jobs. And
Right.
so now we have a whole new trend, starting with taking money out of South Africa when they did our apartheid, to social or responsible investing. And so that pension power can become a funding resource for working with these ESCOs to do this economic transformation. And that's what he calls social capitalism. It's not socialism, but it's a social way of using the money that's more socially responsible than just, you know, putting the profits in 1% of the population. And so he calls that private-public partnerships and building a provider-user network. So, and he's working with his whole front and a kind of exclusive group of front-running energy service companies, are called ESCOs. Now, the challenge, however, and this is right in his book on page 201, is last but not least, the whole success is wholly dependent on the training and development of potentially millions of semi-skilled, skilled, and professional workers who will retrofit this whole infrastructure. We're talking about self-driving cars, laying the cable, doing the Internet of Things, building out these, making green buildings more, resilient and all that. But, that's a big question, particularly if you are a person of color or a woman. The history has not been one. Even the old Green Deal during Roosevelt's time wasn't inclusive. It had some discriminatory things against women and minorities even then. So let's see an example here. One of the things is, I think what's more meaningful is to show you an example of an ESCO that's actually appears to be really working right. So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and you tell me what you think, Sandra. Here we
I'm
go.
on it.
I personally brought the idea to our board of trustees, and they were very supportive because we wanted to reduce our carbon footprint, create jobs in the community, and definitely save on energy costs.
I think what's really special about what we do is that we're not just focused on the infrastructure. We realize that we are a partner in this with our school district partners, and what we want to do is we want to help support their big mission, which is supporting their students' education, preparing them for the future, having a STEM education component, and we want to be a part of that. It's really interesting to see how in tune these students are with what's happening on their campus, what's happening in the world, and how what's happening on their campus affects the world.
Here at Magnolia School District, we developed a comprehensive energy project. One of the most visible measures we implemented here at the district is the implementation of solar shade structures. We installed about 1 megawatt of photovoltaic structures across 11 sites, 9 schools, and 2 support facilities. These shade structures are located on the blacktop of many of the school sites, providing a renewable source of energy, but also ample shade for students during their lunch breaks and recess.
we'll be saving $14+ million over the course of the project that we can then put back into the education for the kids.
Today we had an excellent opportunity to engage with the 4th grade students, and we did an entire lesson on solar and sustainability. And probably the best thing that we heard from the principal was that the 4th grade students came back and they said their favorite part was really the field trip out to see the solar panels and on the canopy. They were so excited about what they learned and about the topics and the pieces and the parts, and they were talking about it throughout recess.
It makes me feel a little happy because we're actually protecting and helping our environment be clean, and it's with less pollution, really.
And so it's been fantastic because we can actually go outside and look at the solar panels that the students are actually reading about. We can look at the types of lights that they are actually discovering and learning about. So it's not just reading it from a text, it's actually seeing it in action, which has been so fantastic to start great conversations with our students.
I think it's been a fantastic project. I think the students of the future are going to benefit, staff as well, and the future families that we serve.
We are a science, technology, engineering, and math district, so we really focus on computer science. And so I think this has helped expose them to the possible careers and possible interests for college. And it's also given them some foundational skills that will help them through junior high and high school, and then into college and into their careers.
Awesome. What do you think, Sandra?
I like it. You know, the fact that it's a STEM program for elementary school students speaks to the fact we're trying to get them to be aware of the changes in our not only climate, but in our environment, the place in which the people live. And so I'm really excited to see something like that and how inclusive it can be across all the ages and in our country.
Yeah, it just seemed like all the people at that ESCO were on the same page, working together. All the horses were pulling in the right direction.
Right. And
so that's a really good concrete example of an ESCO, working things out. So, but as a minority, as an African American, even as a male, I have a limited point of view. There's another point of view that that comes from women that I think might be another way of looking at building this whole new Green Deal, the Green New Deal. So anyway, I'm going to change my slide. Tell us about this next book that we're going to be covering.
Well, I'm really excited to get in tune with what Naomi Klein is talking about. She is a writer, an activist, and she is very instrumental in shaping AOC. That's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Ed Markey's vision of the Green New Deal. So, she is right on. She talks about not only the climate change, but she's also talking about the people's environment. So we have climate change, we have global warming, we have a lot of silos around the discussion of our planet and how we are to survive. She has 50 essays that deal with these topics across the board, including what's going on the right, racism, xenophobia, fascism, and the war on women. All of those things are in her book, and I'm excited to read it. So I think one of the, without giving away the whole storm here, I think it's a good opportunity for us to take a look at it, a good opportunity for us to even read it chapter by chapter. And Art pointed out one of the, he's already reading, Art's pointed out one of the things that we should be thinking about is, Art, you want to say that?
Yeah, this one that spoke to me. Stop trying to save the world all by yourself.
Exactly.
And that's why we're doing this show. I mean, this is a great segue. People, we're talking to you. Do you care about surviving? Not only for yourself, do you care about thriving? Do you care about your children, your grandchildren? Do you care about, you know, having a job as this transition happens, which we know is going to happen? There are even people talking about a fourth industrial revolution, and many of us are still trying to understand and navigate to a third one. And so it really is very important for all of us to weigh in. Even if you have critical comments, you know, a lot of you say, yeah, well, get your audio, we can't hear you, get your lighting together. But, you know, substantively, what are we talking about? Does this speak to you? How can we speak to you? How can we actually give you a voice, you know, as a collective, almost like a movement of humanity to do what we can within like a 12-year time frame, you know, in terms of this climate raising and setting some goals and meeting these climate goals is very, very important. It's mission critical. It's not just another issue. It's not a trend. It's a warming trend, but it's not a social trend. This is not going to go away. Matter of fact, it's always here. But a lot of times, you know, it's so painful that we ignore it or just put it off, or somebody else is going to work with that or whatever. I'll just recycle my trash or whatever. So anyway, that's what I want to say. I'm going to stop our screen share now. But thank you so much, Sandra, for turning me on to this book. I've been listening to it on my radio over Audible, and this lady is very, very cool. And so this is really, really good. So anyway, people, thank you for watching another episode of Conversations for a 21st Century World. Stay tuned for us to talk about this book called On Fire, Naomi Klein, and other books that you might even recommend to us that we might not be aware of. So, you know, what about that, Sandra? What do you want to say?
Well, what I want to say is it's very important for us to now listen critically to what's going on in the news. There's a lot of skepticism about the climate control, climate changes. There's a lot of spin out there. But you know what I've adopted here by listening and participating in this conversation is there are key words, like there are code words that are being said all the time. They might not be talking about the new Green Deal, but they are aware, and it's up to us to learn the vocabulary and be able to speak to it and address it and speak intelligently. Start reading. Pay attention, folks. Let's get on it. If it's to be, it's up to us.
I do think that comment that speaks to me again is the whole thing, the whole success of this initiative, this social, cultural, economic initiative is conditioned on the quality of training and deployment. And that's where we as human beings can be instrumental in making sure that that training is very inclusive, and you know that it speaks to the needs of everybody, not only the ESCOs, just the economy, but whole communities. And so the communities of practice are what we're trying to build right now, and I think we're on the way. So thank you so much, people. We will see you next time.
Thank you for listening.